Hey friends, today I'm going to teach you about the real low carb, not just the stuff in magazines. This is how you make it powerful enough to reverse disease. Check out what my beginners are learning in just their first few days.
I'm Dr. Erin. I am an ER doctor. I was in the ER for almost 25 years and seeing more and more sick people related to metabolic disease. Metabolic disease is the diseases that we can erase just by eating better, which is about 80% of all admissions in the hospital, and nearly 100% of what we're dying from these days. I teach a low-carb diet because that is the way to get healthy. This is why we learn to drop sugar, because literally you are what you eat. I know your parents have told you that from day one, and they're absolutely right. You are what you eat. Very first lesson, sugar equals carbohydrate. I don't want you to be scared off by that carbohydrate term. It's a sciencey term. Nobody likes to say it. It's too long a word. We don't know what the hell that is. Carbohydrate, or carb for short, we all call them carbs, is the same exact thing as sugar. So these terms are used interchangeably. Next, the basic sugars. These are the sugars you all call sugar. Simple sugar means sugar that is in its most basic form. So that means there's nothing else other than sugar here, or carbs. There's no protein, there's no fat, there's absolutely nothing essential in a pure sugar. It includes all your white sugars, your brown sugars, your powdered sugars. It also includes all the fancy ones that the manufacturers like to use. So, right, so all these natural sugars, they think and assume right that people are going to think, oh, that's better for me because it's natural. So that includes honey, agave nectar, things like molasses, maple syrup, and cane sugar. When it comes to simple sugars, the only rule for somebody with a low carb diet is that it needs to get measured. So just to be clear, when you do a low sugar or low carb diet, that doesn't mean that you never eat sugar again. It doesn't mean that you'll never have a cookie again. It doesn't mean that you never have pizza again. So don't get all like crazy up in your head about what people tell you about. You're not going to be able to do any of that. That's not true. What's true about it is you're going to learn where is it, and you're going to learn how much is healthy for you. I want you to have some instruments in your kitchen. So that starts with teaspoons and tablespoons, also cups and half cups and that kind of stuff. So if you don't have the instruments to measure things correctly in your kitchen, that might be step one for you as my client. It's important to know exactly how much you're getting every day. So on this page, you're seeing like 1 teaspoon equals 4 grams. In a single day, most Americans eat like 500 to 1,000 grams, a lot. And you're healthy Americans, those people that come up to me and go, oh, I know how to eat healthy. I already eat healthy. They're still, for the most part, getting like 50 to 200 carbs per meal, not per day. And that's usually why the so-called healthy people that you know aren't really reaching the goals that they want to reach. The World Health Organization recommends 50 grams total in your whole day. That 50 is just to stay healthy. So if you're not healthy, you're going to need to go much lower than that. That means anything that is made with a lot of this sugar is obviously going to be something that you want to cut back on. So this is like the baby steps in terms of low carb. If you've never made this and you've only bought it off a shelf, you may never realize, especially if you don't look at the label, just how much sugar is in this. If you've made a batch of cookies, you know that you dumped cups of sugar. A 1 cup of sugar is 200 grams of carbs. And we haven't even thought about the flour, which is also a carb, and the chocolate chips, which are also carbs. So those carbs add up really, really quickly when it comes to this kind of food. Does that mean I never have a brownie? No, it just means I know what I'm doing and I'm well aware of it when I eat that brownie, and I'm going to have to make up for it with my quota somewhere else. This is the next kind of basic stuff. You know that if you're getting into a low carb diet, you know that things that are made of flour, breads, grains, those sort of things start to come off the list of things that you want to be having every day. These things are huge contributors to poor health. And for some people, this is what holds them back right here. Like, all right, I had you, I'm an adult. I had you with the no cookies and the no candy. I don't need to buy Oreos anymore. I don't need to have Reese's peanut butter cups anymore. But bread, no, I'm off. Pasta, no, I'm off. So what you need to know about these things is, number one, there's substitutions, many substitutions for all of these things. Every day, we're going to talk about how do you replace this and how do you replace that? And are you missing this flavor? And how can you do it to get it and bring it back for yourself? Once you get past it, your taste buds actually change really, really fast. So, I'm asking you to try this experiment. I do this with kids, with teenagers. All of them can, for 3 or 4 days, try to lay off this stuff and see how they feel. And, the results are pretty dramatic. Okay, so no junk, no bread, no pasta, easy peasy. That's just what is already out there in the public, right? Everybody knows how to do low carb from magazines, but we go so much further, and especially for you guys that are really trying to get ahead. So sugar and flour and everything made of them are just the basic stuff. Then we have to get into complex carbs. So simple carbs are sugar alone. Complex carbs have sugar plus fiber, your fruits, your vegetables, your beans, and then there's the sugar plus fat. Those are your nuts and your seeds. All of these things also contain a pretty good amount of protein. So these are all part of a low carb diet. If you are a vegetarian, you're going to be getting a lot of your protein here. If you're not a vegetarian, this isn't where you get most of your protein, but you will get some extras here. So if you're eating any of these things, you're limited by the amount of sugar that's in it. Rule number 2, you must measure all carbohydrates on a low carb diet. So why would I do this? This is starting to sound very complicated, that I have to figure out how many carbs are in almost everything I eat, all these thousands of foods out there. How am I ever going to figure this out? And then I have to say, scientific studies have shown that each one of us on average eats about 24 different foods. And this takes my clients like 48 to 72 hours to figure out. And once you've measured it one time and you know how many carbs are in that meal, you don't need to do it again. So it's easy to figure out the carbs. Why are you cutting sugar? At least 50% of my clients are not here for just weight loss. The number one reason is rapid reversal of medical problems. It's all about reversing metabolic disease, but it starts out as overweight, and then gradually you start to pick up the problems. Your blood pressure starts to get higher and higher every year. Your cholesterol is climbing. Your joints are starting to hurt, just basically because you're overweight, but also because you're inflamed from what you're eating. And then the pre-diabetes and the fatty liver develops, and on and on and on until your organs actually start to break down. And then we have things like heart disease, cancer, stroke, dementia. The other thing we're battling with a lot during this time when you have metabolic disease is moodiness. We are battling with depression and anxiety, and a lot of that is about inability to control what's going in and out, but it's the food itself that creates it too. What are the essential carbohydrates for your body? Nothing. That is the big message. You need 0 of this. Are there some extra antioxidants, phytochemicals? All these are fancy words. Yes. In your vegetables? Yes. I want you to eat those. I do want you to eat those. So these non-essential carbohydrates are in a very particular order. And the order of these is really important. Not sweet to sweet. I want you to focus when it comes to eating carbohydrates on this top 4 category. The majority of manufactured foods are made from the bottom 6. And we prefer the bottom 6. Of course we do, because they're the sweetest and we're addicted to those things. If you have mostly that sweetest stuff in your diet is made mostly of those things. That's why the ones on the top 4 taste like crap. That's why you can't get your child to eat vegetables, because they're too busy eating, granola bars most of the time. And so their vegetables taste like crap. Your taste buds will change so quickly. And they will just continue to change and change and change. When you keep this super high sugar stuff out, the stuff at the top will start to taste beautifully sweet. This crap on the bottom are what we find in the things in the middle aisles. Every single manufacturer loads their stuff with sugar, because that's the addictive stuff. That's the stuff that gets you coming back. And all of us think that we don't have this addiction, but you're 1000% wrong. Every one of us has this addiction. We don't just count carbs, we count net carbs. I want you to subtract out the fiber. Fiber is not anything that you absorb or digest. We always want to look at the serving size. So for 2/3 cup, you want to look at the carbs. The total carbs on this serving are 37. Then look at the fiber. -4 is 33. So I don't care about these sugars or how much are there. You're going to ignore that completely. All I care about is how many total carbs, subtract out the fiber, and that's the net carbs in that serving. And you're going to find out from looking at your labels that among the things that are the highest sugar are what I like to call, in the red circle here, what I like to call the American condiments. Yes, that means if you're looking at this slide, the things on the left with the zeros, these are all great. The more labels a manufacturer throws on something trying to prove to you it's healthy, the less likely it is to be healthy. Let's look at some nitty gritty with vegetables. These are your above ground vegetables. These are going to be the vegetables you want to grab as a low carb eater. So in 3.5 ounces of spinach, you'll get 1 net gram. A lot of these things come in a package and they tell you how many ounces are in the whole package. This huge tub of spinach is 10 ounces of spinach. You could eat this entire box of spinach in a meal and you only have 3 net carbs. I pick up my phone and I ask Siri, literally, I say this to Siri, how many net carbs are in a cup of spinach? And Siri will tell me. It's that easy. Let's look at the below ground vegetables. You'll see these numbers go from yellow to red. This is just like a stoplight. But these are the things that just sort of flavor things. So 3.5 ounces of carrots and onion is actually quite a lot. It's a lot of flavoring. So don't feel like you can't use these to flavor your foods. Yes, you can. When it comes to things like potatoes, though, you got to be careful. Next, pineapple and grapes and bananas are off the chart sweet. That's why we love them. You can still have your larger fruits, but you're going to want to split them. I want you to watch out with those blueberries. They have a lot of sugar. Raspberries and strawberries can have the same sweetness, but check out what goes on the surface of these other berries. The fiber of strawberries and raspberries is visible and you taste it, right? That little bit of grittiness. So you subtract out the fiber and these things end up being way healthier. If you're somebody who's been making that shake, that health shake every morning with loaded with greens and bananas and berries, that's probably why you're not progressing with meeting your goals.
I hope you learned a lot today just from these little snippets of education. If you like learning from me, please hit subscribe so I can keep doing this for you. Please share my content with friends and check out my website if you want to learn more from me.